I had previously recorded and loaded this session recap, but I was reserved about making it public, and I decided against it when I actually heard something from our DM that will affect the next session, session 15. I'll leave that until then. But yeah, I was going to do like 3 rants, and our DM's got enough to worry about. I've spoken to our DM, I've spoken to another player as well, about one of the issues that I had with session 14, in regarding a reveal and reveal of an enemy, and some other thing as well, that I'll get round to. So I apologise if I'm not full of vim and vigour with the session recap. It is going to be a bit, it's going to be a bit difficult. In the previous session, in session 13, our characters actually made it into Cragmore Castle proper, and we had managed to hold a long and bloody siege, which I suppose in real time would have been possibly less than 2 minutes, but it took just under 3 hours to survive this battle. The goblins retreating. They release an owlbear from what Shuri's player describes as a cupboard. And yes, this owlbear is very PO'd and emaciated and looking pretty hungry. Shoria casts a minor illusion upon the owlbear, not the owlbear, excuse me, on the wolf, King Groll's pet, that she, I think, is coup de grace, or Ellie Toscobble had, our halfling rogue. And she makes the wolf look a lot nicer. And the owlbear's pretty smart, but it knows that it needs to defend itself from these rather capable adventurers. It rolls to hit 23. Eliza, the Echo Knight fighter's Echo. I should say as well, Shoria is our Archfey Warlock. I don't know why I'm actually starting to mention everyone's class. I just thought it might be a helpful reminder or whatever. Yes, just 12 slashing damage, and then this owlbear swipes at Eliza and bites Ellie, and misses. Just narrowly though, with a 17 to hit Eliza and 10 to hit Ellie. On my turn, I'm throwing rations. Might as well continue with this mentioning of the classes: Garvel, Grimhammer, Cleric, and the Grave. I'm starting to throw rations and backing into a corner and just saying, "Easy, easy, friend. There's been enough suffering this day. You must rest if you wish to fight another day and gain vengeance upon your captors." Telling the yeah, there's been enough suffering, etc. It doesn't really seem bothered about the rations. Eliza disengages and slowing up to the northern passage of the room where what's his name? King Groll had emerged, and just in a very faint sliver of light, she can see the body of a dwarf, possibly our Dungeon Rock Seeker. And as she's standing there, she can hear the heavy metal boots clang in the. For some reason, I put here in the hell north, in the far hell north, tall north. I don't know what that word says. My handwriting is barely legible. See, if I were DMing, I wouldn't need a DM screen to hide my notes, because no one would be able to read them. Like, can anyone actually decipher what any of that says? Yeah. A figure of average height, silver hair, a woman in bright red metal armour, and a crown of spider legs, leans against the doorway and says, "Well, I wasn't expecting this." She's dragging a fairly large rapier, and she swings at the owlbear. I just want to add as well that I don't know if you've ever seen the video of Sir Christopher Lee, like using a rapier. it's a very heavy weapon. It's not like a fencing sword where it's super light and you can wisp it around in the air. No, you have to thrust and lunge very hard at someone. It's still quite a violent weapon. It gets quite a. It has had a lot of. It's a very romantic weapon, like romantic fantasy weapon, but yeah, it's still quite a hefty thing. So I do appreciate our DM telling us that. Yeah, so she swings and she rolls 16 to hit, doing 17 radiant damage and 8 piercing damage, doing total 25 damage for the first blow. And then, for multi-attack, 17 to hit, 21 damage total, 11 radiant, 10 piercing. So that's 46 total damage, and she just downs this owlbear in one. She just plunges the rapier into the back of its skull, and yeah, there's a hoot, a screeching growl, ends quickly and eventually stops. Ashorius Players describes this as hoot hoot gah gah. And Eliza's just looking horrified at this woman, at this power. I think we're all took aback by this. She gestures to the room of many bodies. Dare I say I'm impressed? She doesn't look aggressive, save for the fact that she just killed an owlbear. Mind you, a fairly weakened, if enraged, owlbear. It's like when people use watermelons to test a weapon's sharpness. It's not a great... Like, I could probably cut a watermelon with a bare hand like that. Well, that's an exaggeration, I realise. But, yeah, it's not a great test. So, but still, we know that she's not to be screwed with. She holds the rapier and shield. Emil is impressed and heals Ellie for 10 HP by putting his hands on her shoulder. Says that was mighty impressive. I couldn't help but notice you wield holy energy. But are you friend or foe? Now, this is one of my 2 rants. I suppose the third one is I could mention, but I've already talked to my DM about this, so I might as well share the possibilities. The first rant is like, how do we know that she's a paladin? Because the thing is, I failed to mention earlier that her rapier has this twirling black energy around it, as if it's magical or she's channeling some dark energy through it. On roll 20, we know that she's a paladin because of the smite damage, or we could have accurately assessed because it's radiant, but it didn't look radiant. Now, maybe Emil felt it, maybe I could feel it, maybe Ellie and Shoria could have detected it as radiant. I mean, maybe it is radiant damage, just flavoured differently, I don't know. It could be necrotic, but I don't think smite can actually do necrotic damage. Or evocation, or anything like that for any other of the oaths. Let's say this is an Oathbreaker Paladin, because they're evil alliance, supposedly. So, yeah, so it's I suppose it's good as well, because I treat Garvel as, quite sheltered. So he, as far as he's aware, Shoria is a cleric of Titania. He doesn't know what warlocks are. Game terms don't necessarily make it into the game as such. Like a paladin, Garvel just sees him as Emil as a cleric of Moradin. That Eliza is possessed by some horrible beastie. Ellie Toscobble is a wizard now. A very sneaky, stout wizard, but a wizard all the same. So yeah, and the parties call me Death Priest as well, rather than Cleric. So that's good. I like that. I mean, completely different. Well, I say completely different domain. Different domain. I am a Grave Priest more than a Death Priest, but it still works. So my next rant sort of goes on to how a lot of the information, a lot of the questions that we ask and answer aren't quite useful. Emil asks, "Are you friend or foe?" And I have put down here. I didn't manage to catch it all, but she did say, like, I guess I finally get to meet the nuisances that have disrupted our plans. Oh no, I've put in the centre of the page. Looks like Groll was no match for you all. She takes a step on top of the owlbear. Ugh, daylight. Not a fan. And I wish at the time that I was actually enjoying this. I have spoken to my DM just saying that, look, if I was watching this, I would love this, but as a player, I didn't know what to do. I didn't find this this reveal all that exciting or pleasant. But I wish at the time that I wish I shouted, "Vampire! She's a vampire!" You know, having this cognitive dissonance of like, well, I've called Sturges vampires, and this person's not a fan of daylight, ergo, they're a vampire. So yes, I've been reading I've been reading a graphic novel of 1984, and I've come across the concept of doublethink. So yes, Eliza asks, "Why did you kill the owlbear?" And I think this is like the only straight answer that we actually got. This drow says it was a nuisance, a pet, but a nuisance. Eliza follows with, "What do you want? Why do you want Gundren?" And I've put here, Ellie says, "None of your business." No, sorry, this is what happens when I'm trying to take notes as fast as I can. This drow paladin says, "None of your business. I've got what I wanted." And Emil follows it with, "Are you a follower of Bane?" And this is where my rant really began. Paladin responds with either "they are one of two" or "I am but one of two." I didn't quite catch the first half, and that's what set me off. I can't be angry about this today. I'm actually mostly just weary and upset, to be honest. But yeah, like, oh, that comes later. Okay, so they reveal that their name is Neza, the Black Spider. So they're an adult, but it's hard to tell how old exactly. And Eliza doesn't recognise them. Eliza asks, "Where's Glassstaff?" And Neza responds, "Hell if I know. We got the information we need." And Emil follows up with, "What info?" Glassstaff came to us with info. His friend had a very big mouth. She looks at the echo blocking the doorway to the south. Interesting. And Eliza dismisses it. Eliza asks about those who were sent to kill the dragon. 17 insight and eyebrow raises. "Not from me," as a response. She dismisses the echo. Sorry, Eliza dismisses the echo. Emil says, "Shame they didn't do a good job of it. That dragon has interest in that cave." And Emil, with a deception with advantage that Eliza fought for, well done Eliza, rolls an 18. I think his other roll was 11. And Emil says, "You might have some competition that's a bit toothier than us." And there's a response, "We'll see who finds it first." Emil, with a 17 insight, says that she's nonchalant about this information. Eliza follows up with, "Who'd want to meddle with the dragon but you?" And Neza responds with, "Wouldn't you like to know?" Yeah. Yeah, I would. I'd like to know about who Glassstaff's friend with the big mouth is. I'd like to know who's going to battle with a dragon, who you or Bane are as one of two. But yeah, see, I could understand like Groll having this sort of arrogance, but also telling us everything we need to know because he's confident that he can kill us. He's a bugbear after all. I don't think he's particularly bright. I mean, maybe he is, but he got into a bottleneck basically, and managed to get himself killed. So, moving on. Shoria averts her gaze from Neza. This was my assessment as well, that I didn't know what to do, so we're just basically going, yes, the floor is made of floor. Normally radiating confidence, she feels dwarfed by the new pack alpha. Neza gets very, very close, and she heals Shoria for 10 HP, because she doesn't feel that we're a threat at all. A warm but dark feeling fills her, stitching her wounds. She bows nervously, chuckling. I think that says bows, nervously chuckling. I don't know. I don't even know if that happened, because again, I just tend to write notes that don't even exist for things. Like calling Ellie the Black Spider. She sighs at the terrain and the smouldering ashes that I created. And she walks through the door that we not explored to the southmost bit of the castle. And she disappears. See, the thing is that the reason why I was going to rant about this was because I didn't know what the purpose of this encounter was. We cannot fight the Black Spider. I mean, Christ, we could barely fight... we could barely fight the... What's it called now? The owlbear. I'm sorry, I'm dehydrated. Excuse me a second. We could barely fight the owlbear. How we're going to fight someone who has a +6 to rapier and we know can do up to 41 damage in a single turn is beyond me. So there were a few possibilities that I spoke to our DM about. Such as... just bear with me. Yep, that's still recording. Okay, so the possibilities were... one, that we fight. One or several of us go unconscious and she walks. 2, we fight. One or several of us got killed and she walks. 3, we fight and she's about to go down, but Deus Ex Machinas herself out of combat. And I do say to our DM, I doubt you'd do that, and walks. 4, we fight and she dies and the game's over because the BBEG's dead. 5, we fight and she goes unconscious. She'll heal herself, free herself, and she walks. So I wasn't really overly confident about our chances with going up against them, and I was trying to figure all this out at the time. I don't know, maybe it's because I like linearity too much. I like tactical combat too much. I like see, this is one of the things where I rebuke the idea of D&D being a fantasy simulator. I mean, you can call D&D a collaborative storytelling experience if you want, but if you're going to have gameplay, then it is still a role-playing game, and I don't think that was I think the only winning move there was not to play. You know, it's the Kobayashi Maru. It's the unwinnable situation, so you have to let them walk. Even with Shoria being healed, bless her. So that was really of very little to no consequence, because we just immediately decided, right, we're not going to chase after her. I will give some positive feedback here, though, at least a suggestion that, in a one-shot that Emil's player had run, the last one-shot that he did for us, we had to decide if we were going to chase after, a necromancer, or rescue the guy we came to find, who was trapped underneath the rubble. And there was the possibility that we might be able to do both, chase him through the portal, or that he created and rescued this guy, and hopefully put an end to both. We unfortunately could only do one of this, as we naturally rescued the bloke who came with us, the priest, and but yeah, it would have been interesting to see, okay, you can either go after the Black Spider, or you can see to Gundren before he dies. And it's quite clear that he's on his last leg, sort of. You can tell how many death saving throws he's got to make, or something like that. But hey, maybe that was what we were supposed to do at the time, rather than just like interrogate her, because we can see our quarry. We now need to go to him rather than let this person stop us. But if we did move, were they going to try and attack us? You know, that was my thinking. So Emil goes running to Gundren, and I'll pause recording there so we can continue what happens there. So Gundren is brought back by Emil with lay on hands, and he coughs and splutters, and Gundren has returned to the land of the living. And he's in pretty bad shape though. Like, with only 5 hit points, he's practically on death's door at this moment. Eliza with a perception check of 11, 1d4, and gets a 4. Rolls 15. Well done, Shoria, for giving her that guidance. I think it was Shoria. Or Ellie gave it guidance. I've just put here in brackets Shoria joins. Nothing to see out of the... nothing to see through the doorways or through the arrow slits. But she does hear distant footsteps. But it's too hard to tell exactly where they come from. Emil comforts... Gundren. I look around in the room where the owlbear was, in the cupboard, and with a perception check of 11, we don't find much there. But Moradin, sorry, excuse me, but Emil does ask, Moradin's not taken you yet, but what did you tell the creepy spider lady? And Emil rolls a 21 insight on him. A brief change of eye colour, like a third eyelid of a crocodile, flickers. Shoria casts the sleep spell on him, as Emil says something including about the safe word pineapple. If the word pineapple is mentioned, things are gonna go downhill. Shoria rolls a nat 20 for initiative. Well done, Shoria. Eliza rolls 18. Gundren rolls 17. I roll 16. Ellie rolls 6. And Emil rolls 5. This isn't an overly significant combat, but I'll go into it anyway. So, Gundren is not all that he seems. In my mind's eye, this seems very much like the Thing, where Gundren is not. I'm sorry about the lighting here. I can't get it to focus for the life of me. I've had to turn the light on and everything. No, nothing's happening. So Emil is like holding this, holding Gundren close to him, like resting him on his lap or whatever, his head on his lap. Feels a metal object pierce his armor for 8 damage, and Shoria managed to put Gundren to sleep. She attempts to, but unfortunately, even with a roll of 35. Nothing happens. Eliza's echo misses with a swing, and Michaela RDM, because she's muted, says "son of a biscuit," which is my favourite curse ever. I'm going to have to use that way more often. So he starts to wriggle free of Emil's arms, and he's twisted and changing. He's now a taller and leaner drow, grinning. You saw through me so easily. How did you know? So I roll if I might as well read the figures, because they are rather impressive rolls that we get. I roll a 15 guiding bolt, 15 radiant damage, nice. Ellie rolls 18 with advantage from the GB, the Great Britain. The guiding bolt, of course. 15 total damage. Emil grapples him for a dirty 20 versus his dex, which I think was like a 9. And Emil whispers, "I don't appreciate that." I'm doing the accent again now. No idea why. I don't care what happens to me! This dude. Shoria vicious mockeries him. 13 DC. Fails with 11. Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, so that's right. This now drow formed figure is yeah, rolls an 11 and fails, and Eliza with a 15 with Talon via her Echo rolls 15 to hit, 12 damage. He's swinging wildly, disadvantage. Rolls 22 and 25 to hit Eliza, swiping at her Echo, 7 damage, enough to kill the Echo. 15 to miss a meal, 15 again misses. Doppelganger confirmed. I miss with Toll the Dead, Wisdom 19 check. Ellie rolls 26, natural 20 to kill the Doppelganger with a crossbow. 37 damage, yeah. So she's got this look of concentration where she's biting her tongue and she's aiming it like very, very wobbly, like, and then eventually just looses a bolt that practically shaves my beard clean. Yeah, and so finally when he falls dead, he shifts once more to a shapeless yet horrifying form. I reluctantly heal Emil for 10 with Cure Wounds, the maximum amount of healing that I could do on a dice roll, 1d8 plus 2. And Ellie's listening to the door that we came through. Oh no, the other door opposite of the room. It's quiet, there's no need for a roll. It's a storage room. An 18 investigation check reveals no traps, but bloodied dwarf-sized clothes. The leather sack contains jangles filled with coins, King Roll's earnings, 220 silver pieces, 80 gold pieces. So it's about 102 gold pieces in total, I think it was. There's a map as well, with a circle of where Wave Echo Cave is, and we loot the bodies and the rest of the place. There's a note, and it mentions Netheril Well. I'm going to bring that up now so I can read it, but it will also be up on the screen as well when I find it. 14. Right, the note says, Black Spider, Nether, and subordinates. I am pleased to hear the dwarf has been captured. Rendezvous to the Cragmore Castle immediately. Secure any materials pertaining to the cave and dispose of the dwarf. I shall continue investigating the Netheril Well. I am optimistic my search will prove fruitful. Until further notice, continue your endeavours, Dread Tyrant. So, we know that Nether is subordinate to someone by the name of Dread Tyrant. So is she one of two with him, or is this other bloke that we met at Thunder Tree one of two? Who knows, maybe Dread Tyrant is one of two. So, perception checks from Eliza, 22, Garvel, 21, Ellie, 19, Shoria, 14, Emil, I forgot to mention as well, the Oath of Devotion Paladin. It'll be on the end credits. Rolls a 3. You find armor, a longsword, tossed behind some of the random stuff that's been accumulated. Insignia of the Lord's Alliance that can't really be removed, as we tried. Maybe present it like a detective's badge and go, you know, Magnum PI. We learn that this is Sildar's gear, because he was completely stripped of it in Cragmore Hideout. There's a small cask full, and I try some, and myself and Shoria drink. It's spirits, a common dwarven drink. Black bitter stout. I regain 1 HP. Nice. The elves don't like it so much. Well, Elias doesn't like it so much, but Shoria is the exception, being a half-elf. Eliza managed to find some owlbear shed feathers that have come cleanly off, but the rest are in pretty bad shape. Eliza tosses Ellie up to a landing where, on the second floor, there's like an old lady's room, and Ellie says, "Isn't it a tradition in D&D to play Toss the Halfling?" With a 23 acrobatics and perfect timing and enough strength, Ellie performs a perfect somersault. And she finds a chest, and she would throw it down, but it says she's going to throw some rope down to Eliza. Eliza could have summoned her Echo up there and swapped places with it. Very much like in Divinity Original Sin, for instance, where you can use the teleportation skills and such. But instead she climbs a rope, and she rolls 13 acrobatics and she just slips. So the Echo Swap it is. Ellie checks for traps, and we have a break there and then. We're coming to the end of the session soon enough now, so in the chest is a potion of healing, 2 scrolls, 120 gold pieces, and 50 silver pieces. At first we thought that nobody could identify them, but Shoria and myself reveal that it is a scroll of silence, and that Garvel, myself and Emil can also reveal that one of them is a scroll of revivify. We talk about the possibility of like this being a necromancy necromancy spell, and like does that go against the tenets of my god? Well, it shouldn't do, because I actually get the revivify spell as part of my loadout. So yeah, but yeah, it is definitely okay. But yeah, it was a good discussion as well. Also as well, that revivify, as written, does not require the spirit's consent to rejoin the body. It happens automatically, unlike resurrection and true resurrection. So it is essentially like a cheap, like almost like a torture device in a way. Like you could just keep revivifying someone if you've got the diamonds to cast it, of course. So Emil's about to go to rest, and where Gundren previously was. And we're thinking, like, rather than sell the gear, because the Lord's Alliance is a pretty powerful faction, even though I don't like them very much. Oh, there's a thought. I need to have a rant very quickly. I'm sorry, Emil's player, I'm going to have to put off your backstory for just a moment. Okay, so the reason why Garvel doesn't like the Lord's Alliance, I had mentioned that I wanted to ride the Owlbear into Neverwinter and kill Sildar Hallwinter with it. And Ellie was a bit taken aback by this, and that's fair enough. I'd only really mentioned this sort of thing in the session recaps. I should just add as well, Garveld doesn't want to do that, it's more I want to do that. My reasoning is because, like, essentially, like, the Lord's Alliance is incompetent. Okay? Put yourself in the shoes of the head of the Lord's Alliance, okay? The Lord's Alliance has noticed that Phandelver 2.0 has come about after destruction by the orcs, and is now a prospering, or nearly prospering, boom. It's an okay boom town, and it's going to become ever more popular when there's going to be this mining craze that's not very far from Phandelver, with the Wave Echo Cave. So, however, you notice that there's virtually no one to police it, and also as well protect the tax money and profits that this town is now going to bring. So, who do you send? You could send some newly trained recruits or whatever to protect this town that doesn't really face that many threats, the odd bandit, goblin groups or whatever. You could send perhaps a small army. You know, turn the people of the town into some sort of militia, maybe. Or prepare a militia. You could send some engineers up to build up some defences or whatever. Or you could just send one wizard on his own. So this wizard, okay, sensing that that's a good idea. You sent this one wizard up, and he hasn't reported in a few weeks, as is his responsibility. So perhaps he's comfortable in his position, and he's completely forgot to report, okay? Or maybe he's had a lot of information that he's trying to compile. Maybe he's just really busy with all the administration, because the town master might not be helping him. Or maybe he's in danger. So who do you send in the possibility of the worst case scenario? You could send, again, experienced guards, convoys, caravans, just to double check on things, just to make sure that everything's okay there. he must have surely secured the town now. Now it's time to get the troops to maintain the order that has been brought. Now, you send Sildar Hullwinter, who is fairly experienced, but is not a one-man army. But fortunately, though, he has Gundren Rockseeker, a miner, and a dwarf. So one man and his dwarf, they went to mow a meadow, or rather mow down some goblins, and failed spectacularly. They were captured by about, 6 goblins, or whatever. And they don't make it to Phandelver. So we follow them afterwards. And they get captured. Sildar gets his throat cut in Cragmore Hideout. It's only through my magics that he has been spared Killenvor's judgment for throwing his life away. We take him back to Phandelver. And now we reveal that Glassstaff has raised a small army. And Glassstaff is on the run. His army is now defeated, but there are other things that he can probably get besides humans to fight and die for his escape. Sildar is now expected to go home to Neverwinter all on his own. Even though, because there could be more than just, well, we know there's more than just goblins and orcs. So goblins and bugbears out there. We know there's orcs and hobgoblins and the undead and vampires. That's my reasoning for not liking the Lord's Alliance. They have trickled out their forces to no positive effect. But then it's like, if you didn't do that, there would be no adventure. You wouldn't have the hook. The Lord's Alliance have to be incompetent. And I like that, this high and mighty faction has actually been brought low by common sense. It's sort of like why don't they take the Eagles to Mordor? Hindsight's 2020 and all that. But even then, I think I've spoken on that in another video. It's quite simply, if you didn't do that, you wouldn't have an adventure, would you? So that's why they're not gonna do that. So, anyway, that's my rant about that. So, I'll reveal our plans for the next session, or so I believe they will be the plans for the next session, afterwards. So, while Emil's resting, getting back to the important bit of this session, or one of the 2 important bits of the session, Eliza shocks Emil in his trance when she puts a hand on his shoulder, just asking if it's okay, and he readies his warhammer. And he says that I went down again, and it gets you thinking of things. Are things unsaid? And he removes a portrait, a very clearly well-made portrait, a dwarven family on parchment, including Emil and a female dwarf holding a baby. He looks at it and says that we dwarves, we put family above all, above hearth and the craft. His parents, his sister and his niece are in this portrait. And he can't go back because of his niece. He shifts uncomfortably. Eliza is all ears, and Emil laughs to himself as an in-joke of elf ears that Eliza doesn't quite get. She's just feeling her ears. He takes a swig from his stout skin. He's not been home in 10 years, and he provides context. All the dwarves of Frostback serve. usually in some form of military or engineering sense. They sent caravan guards out, and he was part of the Hearth Guards to protect. He was on stay, watch. And he had a friend, a brother-in-arms called Brightbeard, who played the lute. And Brightbeard, if anything could save him, it was his wit and his charm. But unfortunately, it didn't save him that day when he stopped playing and something wet hit Emil's face. He looked to the seat next to him, where Brightbeard was, and he wasn't there. He was on the floor, his arm just completely just severed at the shoulder. The group was ambushed by demons attacking. There was screaming and bleeding, and as much as Emil tries to get his hand on this bloody stump, try to bandage it in some way or cauterize the wound in whatever way he can, he just cannot, because the blood is running, and all the while there's this screaming and bleeding and screaming and bleeding and screaming and bleeding and screaming and bleeding. And then he prays. He prays. It's the only source of power that he can call upon right now. It's the only thing he knows to do. And he cauterizes the wound with the prayer. But there's nothing after that. He ran when he saw that there was nothing more he could do. The Hearthguard valiantly fought and perhaps even survived, but Emil ran and ran and ran, and he ran home. And when he heard his niece cry, all he could hear is Brightbeard screaming, bleeding, screaming, bleeding. It's getting very itchy tasty, this, I have to say. I'll face anything the Black Spider throws at me, but I cannot face that little girl. Eliza provides some comforting words, and I just had to mute myself and just start clapping away, because that was a magnificent performance. I've put down here, bravo. Yeah, bravo. While this is going on, yeah, Garvel's just, like, lying on the floor drunk. He's had enough today. He's splendid. He's having his nap. Shortia says that she's not exactly the religious type, but this experience with Neza, and indeed all of this stuff, would have turned anyone religious. Eliza says everyone was beat to a pulp. That was our biggest fight ever. Emil talks about traumatic stress that the clerics have spoken of. And that every day that we live is another day their memory lives on. And that who will survive my legacy? To Shoria, Stefan is survived by her. And Emil follows it with, I drink and I know things. I add to the RP chat channel to Emil's stuff, because I didn't say anything there, but during our long rest I say to him, I know those screams from under Dungan, Emil, but our prayers fell upon deaf God's ears. It was not until I came to the surface that I realised that they could not hear that far down. 200 years later, and I still doubt the benevolence of the Morden Saman. If we ever make it out of this bloody fool business, come to the temple. We offer aid to those who grieve. Ours are long lives to live, and we should not spend it miring in ill thoughts. I take out the bell of silent alarm. This is an item that I learnt of in my short rest before I fell to sleep. It is a bell that is completely silent to anyone who isn't the target of it. When you use an action to ring it, one creature of your choice can hear the bell's peal, provided the creature is within 600 feet of the bell and not deafened. No other creature hears the sound coming from the bell. The bell regains 1d4 charges daily at dawn. I think it's from Xanathar's Guide to Everything as well. According to Roll20, I'm not sure. Um, and anyway, getting back to it, I take out the bell of alarm and stroke it. Ooh, matron. I find the bells soothing. With that, I stare out of the arrow slits to the night sky. And that's not essentially it, because Ellie has some stuff to say, and unfortunately, I was starting to zone out at this point. And I do apologise to Ellie profusely, because they'd made an effort to talk about their backstory here, and as did Emil as well, because he hasn't really mentioned anything about his backstory yet. So, yeah, and it's a shame because I lost, or because I was trying so hard to write all these notes down, I missed a lot of it. Ellie's measuring distances on the map using string, and Eliza offers some help. She asks approximately how long it was from Phandelver to Thunder Tree. About 2-3 days. And Ellie just says, "No, I'm just worrying myself." Wondering about the halfling encampment that she lives at. That she wonders if the Black Spider is a greater threat to the dragon. Greater threat than the dragon to her halfling encampment. She tells of the time she saw her father cry for the first time that she knew of. That was when the heirloom was stolen. Eliza rolls a 19 insights. This is all from the past, and she's too young to remember. And Ellie says, some people die. Shoria prompts Eliza about her background. She's partly running away, partly running also as well to get stronger, to fight the threat that she's running from. And Ellie puts Gundren's hat upon my sleeping bald head. And that is when we level up. Yeah, we've all reached level 4. Some of us have chosen feats, some of us have chosen ASI. I think Eliza's player now has a +5 in dexterity. So yeah, we've got that to look forward to. So our DM's probably going to have to up the AC on a fair few things, and possibly as well the DC on some acrobatics checks and whatnot. But yeah, it was a good session. I just wish that, and I think it's made. No, I'm not. That sounds cruel. I'm going to say it was made better by the context of something that happened after the session, but I don't mean it in a positive way. I mean, like, my complaints with that session pale in comparison to an event that I will talk about in session 15. Not in any great detail, out of respect to that player, or rather, out of the players to the players involved. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to talking about session 15, at least to begin with. But I think that we're due for a shopping episode. We are going straight to Neverwinter, possibly going to Neverwinter, to gear up, get some provisions, and buy spell components and things like that, and then maybe get some reinforcements. Talk to the Lord's Alliance, talk to the temples, talk to anyone who can provide any aid on dealing with a dragon whatsoever, or indeed securing Way of Echo Cave when it's been captured. So thank you for watching. I do apologise that this was perhaps a bit long-winded, especially at the beginning where there was a lot of pauses. Yeah, I wasn't quite into the session recap to distract me from the unfortunate news that I've heard, but yeah, we shall see. We shall see how it goes. So yes, thank you for watching, take care, and your dice forever remain clacky. It's that for now.
Out came the sun.